It's 7 a.m.
I guess about this time you're asking yourself what you got yourself into.
It's time to talk some sports.
And it starts right now.
On the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. You've heard the headlines. Now, let's get into what's really happening.
Come on, let's go.
On The Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
Well, you know, I guess that was wild to a certain extent. Good morning, welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Blake and I were in some sort of serious discussion before the show on the NFL draft, and I can't wait to hear what you thought about what played out last night in Cleveland, Ohio, with the first 32 picks in the NFL draft. We'll get to that. Your Cowboys, your Saints, why people continue to draft linebackers and running backs in the first round, and more. The show is brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Would love for you to go to dancingrabbitgolf.com and go ahead and book some tee times or schedule a golf stay-and-play at Pearl River Resort. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Again, this is WRKS 105.9 The Zone. And you can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-995-1059, as I am in Stark Vegas, Mississippi. And Twitter handle at BoBounds, presented by Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools at Ace Bolt and Screw. And hit us up. I'm looking at it. Mississippi Ag, John Deere Tractor text line, 601-885. 601-885-3776. That's funny. True Maroon coming in hot. The Real Eric coming in hot. Pat's here. And Three-Humped Camel. So who says smart pick by the Broncos? Or maybe that's Blake coming back at him. Nope, that's him. Smart pick by the Broncos. Interesting. Okay, so what was the bigger story today? All 32 picks of the NFL draft, which the biggest name in the draft was a snoozer because we knew he was going to go number one to the Jacksonville Jaguars for months now in Trevor Lawrence. Or was it the news that dropped that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers can't get on the same page? And with that, he wants to play out west, either with the Broncos, the Raiders, or the 49ers, which evidently the 49ers tried to do a deal within the last week or so on Aaron Rodgers anyway, and that Aaron Rodgers' agent has let them know that he doesn't want to come back. So we've seen this in the NBA. When I was growing up in Magic Johnson's first year, 1980, I think, right after he and Larry Bird had played in the national championship game, Michigan State and Indiana State. I know, those two powerhouses. Magic Johnson got his coach fired. And, I mean, he was a rookie. All right? He said, no more. I'm done. That's how much, power and credibility he had as a rookie in the NBA. He gets his coach fired. What happened with Michael Jordan? He got his coach fired. And then they hired Phil Jackson. The Lakers hired Pat Riley. They got it right. Doesn't always happen. But over the years, NBA players have had power. Kobe, Jordan, Magic, LeBron, among others. Now, all of a sudden, we may be seeing a little bit different deal with quarterbacks in the NFL. And the ability to say, you know what, I'm done. Y'all can't get your act together, and I'm going to go play somewhere else. Plus, he wants to host Jeopardy, and I guess if he's that much closer, I mean, he's flying private either way. But if he's that much closer to L.A., then he has an opportunity to both play quarterback in the NFL. That would be Aaron Rodgers. Maybe for the Broncos, maybe for the Las Vegas Raiders, maybe for the 49ers. And and host Jeopardy. I don't know. And maybe it's just the bottom line is what they did last year, drafting a quarterback in Jordan Love out of Utah State and not telling him. Who knows? So, Blake, what was the bigger story, a bunch of players that, for the most part, people don't know? Okay, I mean, I didn't even watch Penn State football, so Micah Parsons went to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they drafted a linebacker, a devalued position. I mean, Urban Meyer's drafting Travis Etienne, in the 20s for the Jacksonville Jaguars, a running back. You can get that same guy in the 3rd or 4th round easily. And, of course, Najee Harris went in the 1st round too. So what was the bigger story yesterday, Blake? Aaron Rodgers or anything that happened last night?
RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay.
It's got to be Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Aaron Rodgers, he's in his back half of the prime, but he's still got 3 or 4 solid to great years on him easily, if not more on the other side. He's a perennial NFC title game competitor, and if he leaves, whether he goes to the NFC, AFC, whatever, if he leaves Green Bay, it is a massive shift in power for a franchise that's really been dominant for the better half of 30 years.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, it's a huge story.
It is a huge story.
And all rumors early from multiple sources, including Jay Glazer and Chris Collinsworth and the guys at Pro Football Focus, and we'll have Steve Palazzo on later today to talk about this, but all rumors early pointing to John Elway poaching another future Hall of Fame quarterback for the Denver Broncos.
Well, okay, so did Denver go and get maybe what was the best player on the board?
Instead of the
Patrick
best quarterback?
Surtain?
Yeah.
Okay, Denver decided to pass on Justin Fields at number 9 last night, guys. So Aaron Rodgers is maybe in play. And Denver decided to, and again, you could argue this, but maybe take the best player on the board. Or, I mean, definitely the best corner. One of the best players. We know that on the board. Is that part of draft capital, along with a lot of other assets, that they believe they can say, hey, look, here's another thing that we just did last night. We didn't reach. We didn't get cute. We didn't draft a running back. We didn't draft a linebacker. We drafted a cornerback in Patrick Surtain from Alabama, who most people believe will have a really, really good career. Is that why they did that, Blake?
I mean, it has to be, right? I don't know how you don't take Justin Fields, who some people had as the number 2 quarterback in the class, and I get everybody's ratings are different, but he was anywhere from the 2nd to 3rd, 4th best quarterback in the class. You could have taken him at number 9 without moving up, and you don't take him as the QB of the future. It screams that you have something else going on.
Okay, let me go to this. Blake and I have been talking about this for weeks. The 3rd pick in the draft, the San Francisco 49ers played some of the most respected and highly regarded people in my business.
Ooh, baby.
I mean, Adam Schefter bought this. Dan Patrick. I mean, these are guys that are very, very, very connected over the years. And yet Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch just played everybody. I mean, really? You're gonna spend that much draft capital to draft Mac Jones, who can't outrun a fire hydrant, to run Kyle Shanahan's offense? It never made sense. Like, I'm not a coach. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I'm not even an offensive analyst, which evidently anybody today. Now, I am on Twitter. But really, Blake, Trey Lance started 17 games. I could argue, why on that too. But evidently Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch believe that Trey Lance out of North Dakota State is their future, maybe after one more year with Jimmy G. And Mac Jones goes to the New England Patriots. So Bill Belichick has a new QB to mentor and develop. Out of Bounds 105.9 The Zone is brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Visit MississippiSportsMedicine.com. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. Heck of a guest list today. Coming up next, Big Board.
The Big Board. What's on the big board?
All right, I've got Blake Mania with me. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Want to say good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. It's Football Friday on the show, and we have plenty of SEC baseball this weekend in Start Vegas at Duty Noble and Oxford at Swayze. So it should be exciting. Over the weekend to see who takes the series out of the four teams. Ole Miss hosting the South Carolina Will Muschamps, and Mississippi State, Hail State will host the A&M Aggies. A&M Aggies. Huh. Maroon and white versus maroon and white. And we'll get that all kicked off tonight. It rained a good bit here last night, Blake. Did it rain there?
It did at my house. It was raining overnight, yes. Not when I came to work this morning, though. It was nice when I came to work.
Good.
But it rained overnight.
Well, we sat outside at a friend of mine's house who has a cool, outdoor deal that was covered. But, yeah, it rained pretty good. So, anyway, I thought I'd give you all a weather update. So the first round of the NFL draft is in the books, and Blake and I were laughing during the break. You kind of felt like teams wanted to trade out, but nobody wanted to do a deal with them. And so at the end of the day, everybody's on the clock, and you got to pick a player.
Yeah.
And they're just I think some of these guys that we don't know much about will go on to be really good players in positions that we don't focus on? Absolutely. But is there a lot of star power in this thing? Not really. Not really. Now, we talked about how there's only about 600 and something players available for the draft this weekend. Usually, I think it's 1,300 plus. And next year will be a COVID correction or disaster because you're going to have about 2,000 players available for the draft. And we all know that the numbers don't add up. So that could get real weird and funky for both the young men, and for the NFL teams. Actually, it could be, yeah. Well, if you're smart wins the day, and you know what you're doing, then you could make a lot of hay next year, Blake.
Yeah,
with that kind of with those kind of numbers and maybe that kind of depth, and of course each class gives us different things, Blake. But like you may have depth at like three different positions and a ton of depth there. Where if you're good at what you do and evaluating, just like we have to all evaluate in business every day, if you're really good at what you do, I mean, you could score some big points.
Yeah, absolutely. And the practice squad undrafted free agent lists next year are going to be through the roof. Like training camps following next year's draft are going to be cutthroat because you're going to have 30 people trying out for 2 spots as opposed to maybe 10 people trying out for 2 spots. Yeah.
That's true. All right, let's go through it real quick. I'm not going through every pick, but the San Francisco 49ers at 3 did not draft Mac Jones from Alabama. They went with Trey Lance from North Dakota State, which is probably just as big a risk. The only difference is Lance has that mobility piece that we've been talking about that's so valuable in the NFL now. Mahomes, Dak, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun, Justin Herbert's a better athlete than people think. You know where I'm going there. Lamar Jackson's on the extreme side, how freaky athletic he is. Even Joe Burrow is a freak athlete. So you get the sense that most franchises want some flexibility, mobility, and the ability to escape the pocket and put pressure on defenses at times from their quarterback. And Trey Lance brings that to the table, Blake, over Mac Jones. But he's still a big risk. He's only played 1 game in 2 years and only started 17 games at college, which is not the number that everybody's looking for to be successful.
Yeah, can I put in, though, that this, and I thought this was an interesting tidbit from, I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah yesterday that I was watching. Kyle Shanahan probably looks at Trey Lance as unmolded clay because he's still very young and still very raw, and so Shanahan can put his entire imprint on Trey Lance, let him spend a year on the bench, and really take an undeveloped prospect, as opposed to Mac Jones, who probably is what he is and is not going to get any better.
That's right. And, hey, that's probably perfect for Belichick. I mean, Mac Jones is probably, what Belichick can work with better than Shanahan working with Mac Jones. And so that's something to think about, too, Blake. And you just mentioned it. They're going to redshirt him, which I just can't tell you how big that is. Even if you get to wait 8 or 9 games before playing, but they'll redshirt him, so to speak, this year, kind of like Patrick Mahomes had that opportunity. I think we forget about that when we're thinking about Mahomes, who we think is either the best or up there with the top 3 in Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Now, for your Dallas Cowboy Dak Prescott fans, Dallas decided to trade back, and
which is good.
Yeah, I mean they got another pick in the 3rd round, right, Blake?
Yeah, that's what it is, and that's outside of the Chicago trade to move up.
If this is a garbage draft, not a garbage draft. Let me rephrase. That's not fair to these young men. All these guys are ridiculous talented. If this is a draft that is not near as deep or talented as past drafts, is that big a move going into the 3rd round where it looked like people were scrambling after the first few picks to really find what you would consider a super talented player? Blake?
Yeah, I think what it is you had no one to pick at 10 that you felt was valuable. If you pick Micah Parsons at 10, it's not worth it. By trading back, you accrue 1 extra pick, which means you can be wrong one more time. It gives you one more time to be wrong if you get it right somewhere else. Right. And it also still allowed you to pick the person you would have picked at 10. So I think it's a great win. The only trade, so the San Francisco 49ers made a big trade before the draft. The only trade yesterday we saw that was of any magnitude was the Bears. They moved from 20 to 11, and I told you before the show, I thought that most likely Jerry Jones had the opportunity to take that trade from Chicago.
I would have taken it.
From 20 to 10. Chicago gave up a future first-rounder, a future third-rounder, and maybe one more future first-rounder in like 2 years or something like that. So they gave up a lot to move up from 20 to 11 with New York. But I guess Jerry felt like he wouldn't get his guy at 20.
Okay, so Dallas moves back and gets Micah Parsons, and some people like it and some people don't, but that's everything in the draft. That's what makes it fun. We all debate it over lunch at Live Oaks and later this afternoon with a Modelo on your patio. But anyway, and on this show on the Mississippi Ag text line, Elijah Moore was not drafted. Blake, I was surprised. I thought he would go.
Yeah, 5 receivers went off the board. That was tied for second among position groups. Receivers, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, and corners all had 5 go. You had Jamar Chase go 5th to the Bengals. Jalen Waddle went 6th to the Dolphins. I thought that was interesting because by the Bengals not picking an offensive lineman, it meant the Dolphins didn't get Jamar Chase. They got Jalen Waddle, which pairs up an LSU QB and receiver in Cincinnati and an Alabama QB and receiver in Miami. Kind of interesting.
How about that?
Devontae Smith is who the Eagles picked at number 10 when they traded up with the Cowboys. And that doesn't hurt you if you're Dallas because Devontae Smith was going to the Eagles or he was going to New York at 11 if they don't take the trade with Chicago. So it didn't matter either way. New York took Kadarius Toney at 20, and then Rashad Bateman was the interesting pick at 27 by the Baltimore Ravens.
For our listeners, you probably don't know much about him. Rashad Bateman, real quick, out of Minnesota. He opted out last year, so he didn't even play. Elijah Moore was not taken. I expect to hear his name early tonight. Blake, let's look and see what time that starts back this evening. Most people will be watching Hail State baseball and Ole Miss baseball. All right, the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by XL Water and Coffee. Would you like water delivered to your door? Bubbler, Gatorade? Water at mydoor.com. 50% off your initial order. Discount code BOUNDS. That's water at mydoor.com. Water at mydoor.com. Discount code BOUNDS. Oh man, it is. It's a football Friday with the helping of college baseball for us. So this is going to be fun the next couple hours. Let me lay it out for you as far as guests on the Modelo guest line, and our NFL draft coverage is brought to you by an ice cold Modelo. Steve Palazzolo will join us at 8:30. Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. And we'll go over the winners and losers from last night, because you know how we are. I mean, we have to have instant, right, analysis. We really won't know for a year, 2 years. Although the people that say 3 to 4 are not – I mean, in the NFL, these guys are expected to come in and play. It's not quite like signing day in college where, you know, you can – redshirt, or you can kind of play a little bit more type deal. You know, most of these guys are expected to walk into camp and start and contribute. But would love to hear your thoughts on winners and losers. Palazzolo will join us at 8:30 on the Modelo guest line. Brad Henderson, Ole Miss Baseball Network, will stop by at 9 a.m. and talk Ole Miss and South Carolina. Obviously, his nickname is Hindu. One, most people know that from if you know him or growing up with him. And two, it's on his Twitter. It's part of his Twitter name. And so Brad Henderson, who is a fantastic player at Ole Miss, and now he's a color analyst for Ole Miss Baseball, he'll stop by at 9 a.m. on the Modelo guest line. And then at 9:30, we'll have the maniac himself, and that would be Dave Bartu. College Football Matrix, and he came up with a formula 20 years ago on this NFL draft QB stuff, and it has been super duper accurate. You know, here were the metrics that he went by. Boom. If you met him, you had a great chance to start over 30 games in the NFL. If you did not, the percentage was 4.9%. That's kind of simple. 74% if you met them, 4.9% if you did not. And Mac Jones does not meet that criteria or metric system. Neither does Justin Fields, and neither does Trey Lance. Could be they don't hit more than one, or it could be that they didn't start enough games. So we can't wait to see, you know, is Trey Lance going to be a good football player, a quarterback in the NFL for the 49ers? Will Justin Fields be the first good quarterback in the history of the Chicago Bears franchise? Which is weird to say because it's Chicago and it's the Bears, and yet they've never played offense for 50, 60 years. That's pretty amazing. Or as Jim McMahon said, their Super Bowl winning quarterback, it's where QBs go to die. And then Mac Jones will pair and partner with the greatest coach to ever coach the game in Bill Belichick, and see if they can rekindle the magic in Foxborough with the New England Patriots. On top of all that, some teams paired wide receivers with their Alabama quarterbacks. What did you make of that as Miami picked Jalen Waddle for Tua to throw to? Tua's the starting quarterback for now, is the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And then the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Devontae Smith out of Alabama for Jalen Hurts, depending on how long he starts, to throw to him. Blake, what'd you make of that? And Bama on Bama.
You throw in the LSU tie with Chase and the Bengals.
That's right.
Drafting him for Joe Burrow. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting, I guess, what I've noticed about that, and obviously this somewhat makes sense. This isn't like taking this isn't like taking an Alabama quarterback because you've got Julio Jones from 9 years ago, right? Like, just because they went to the same school, there's not a tie. These are teams that are trying to placate or insulate their rookie or young quarterback for, you know, from danger, so to speak, by giving them someone they're already familiar with, someone they already have a relationship with.
And on top of that, they're just talented players. They just happen to be from the same school too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is some coincidence, but there's a reason why you pick that guy over another guy, right? Like, you could argue there's another receiver someone could have taken someone over Devontae Smith at 10. Philly could have taken a different receiver, and probably people not been that upset. But they took Devontae Smith, Alabama connection as well, which is somewhat of a coincidence, but also a maybe calculated decision as well.
Fair enough. SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Two Brothers Smoked Meats. Pre-game, post-game this weekend at Two Brothers. Delicious wings, street tacos, great restaurant and bar, outdoor area. They've got it all at Two Brothers in the historic Cotton District. Right there, just a couple of minutes from Duty Noble Field. Two Brothers, wings, street tacos, drinks, pregame and postgame Hail State baseball this weekend. Game day starts with Two Brothers. Blake is live in the Bank Plus studio.
I need your opinion.
In Stark Vegas. Sorry, what?
I need your opinion, Beth.
Okay.
On this draft that we're discussing. Worst pick. The Washington football team at 19 taking a linebacker that some analysts had in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, or the Packers for, I guess, the 15th or 16th year in a row taking a non-offensive skill position player. They take a cornerback who, again, they reached on.
Okay, so they are let's start with Green Bay. The rumors heated up yesterday that Aaron Rodgers is done. I want out. Y'all figure it out. According to some people, he has told his agent, I'm out. I'm not talking to him. His agent has flown to Green Bay to visit with them. And Green Bay's head coach, Matt LaFleur, has flown to the Bay Area where Aaron Rodgers lives. The general manager has flown there. And someone else within the Packers organization. I don't know if it's like they don't have an owner, so to speak, so maybe it's a COO or CEO type deal. Have all made 3 separate trips to go see Aaron Rodgers. And then Aaron Rodgers' agent has flown into Green Bay to try to get this quote-unquote extension done. Aaron has told them, I'm not restructuring. It's not happening. And then so I think they thought, well, we'll do an extension. And then he came back and said, you know what? Not only am I not going to restructure, I don't want to do a deal, and I want out. Now, what Blake just said is interesting because the Packers usually pick late in the draft because they've been good since Brett got going in 92 or 93, whenever that was, 93 maybe. And you look at the Packers here with the 29th pick, and they pick Eric Stokes, a corner out of Georgia, in which Blake said, and so does PFF and others, that it was a reach. I mean, you could get that guy 40 picks later.
They had him as the number 11 corner and number 72 overall player on PFF, and he was taken as the 5th corner and the number 29 player overall.
And so the point is why not take Elijah Moore there?
Yeah.
The game is played through the air now. The game is about spread and chasing space and creating mismatches. It's why we love watching it. It's so much more fun today. And so here you were with the 29th pick in the draft, and you have a quarterback who's ticked, and you still don't draft an offensive skill position player, and you have one on the board in Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, who is arguably, you could argue he's the number 3 wide receiver. Some would argue he's just as good as the number 2 wide receiver in the draft. I mean, outside of Jamar Chase, there were some that argued, you can throw Elijah Moore right in there with Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. My point is this. I wonder this. Do the Packers know that they're not going to be able to kiss and make up with Aaron Rodgers? And so knowing that, they just said, we're going to – I don't know why they like this player, but they did. We're not going to draft an offensive skill player because even if we do – that's not enough to bring him back into the fold. Who knows? But if he moves, Blake, if Aaron Rodgers moves after June 1 from the Packers to whoever, the Broncos or whatnot, will that not be the biggest player to move on a trade like that? Because Peyton Manning was injury, Blake. Mm-hmm. The biggest player to move in the history of the NFL?
It has to be. So Manning was free agency off of injury. Tom Brady was free agency at the end of his career. I can't even begin to imagine I don't know who you could put in the conversation of a name to be traded that would even remotely match up with what it would be if Aaron Rodgers. I guess in theory, if you could rewind the clock and Deshaun Watson had been traded prior to the off-the-field stuff showing up, that would be the closest thing.
Right.
And it still wouldn't be the same because Aaron Rodgers is an NFL MVP and a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Again, he has been in Green Bay since he was drafted. Like, you just don't see this happen very often or at all.
Well, you don't see it happen at all. A player who was the best player in the league for about 7 or 8 years at the most important position could be moved with maybe 3 to 4 years left of really, really high-level play. And so, in my opinion, the Aaron Rodgers story trumps anything that happened in the draft. Although there was some fun stuff there for a while. Here's what happened to Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. You look at J.C. Horn, who has ties to Mississippi, and again, Joe Horn's son, who played at the Saints. J.C. Horn goes at 8 to the Carolina Panthers. And then at 9, the Denver Broncos, instead of going quarterback, which does that mean that they think they're going to get Aaron Rodgers later? So instead of picking a quarterback, the Broncos go with Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. So by the time you got to the Cowboys at 10, they were like, okay, the top 2 corners are off the board. We're willing to move. And they moved back a couple of spots. The Eagles jump up, get Devontae Smith. And the Cowboys take Micah Parsons, a linebacker for Penn State, who evidently is, fast as lightning, but doesn't necessarily play a premium position in the sport. So how do you weigh that? He's talented, and he's lightning quick and fast and can go sideline to sideline in a sport today where you have to do that. But he really doesn't. Premium positions of quarterback and tackles and edge rushers and corners, and we now think wide receivers, although that position is really deep. What were the Cowboys to do? Blake said, well, they did what they could do. Now, evidently they weren't willing to move back all the way to 20. I don't know why. This thing was there wasn't a lot of star power at the top of the draft, so it looked like everybody was kind of not going for development players, but just hoping that you get a player who will start for 5 years and maybe make a Pro Bowl. Is that what you're really looking for at the end of the day? Because when I hear 8 to 10 years, that's nonsense. Or even 6 to 8. You're trying to find a 4 to 5 year player who starts most of the games, is better than pretty good, and is kind of a one-time Pro Bowl type guy. Outside of like Jamar Chase type players. You agree, Blake?
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. If you're not like an elite edge rusher, a quarterback, or like you said, the elite type skill position player, I don't know what you expect. I'm with you. I think you've got to be able to be a second contract guy who is making more than one Pro Bowl over the span of your time with that team to be successful, to be a good pick.
Okay. Well, so Dallas goes with linebacker which is not like it's not a lot of excitement. Tell them about Marcus Mosher, Cowboys insider, last night on this pick.
Oh, he was furious. He did not like it. Did not like it at all. He was a Rashawn Slater supporter with that pick at number 12, which would be the guard or / tackle, depending on how you look at out of Northwestern. That's who he thought they should take with the 12th pick. I don't know. If you believe that your offensive line is healthy, which is what our Dallas people have said they believe, then you don't take the offensive lineman there. Micah Parsons gets on the field immediately. Rashawn Slater doesn't.
Hey, what do you make of this tweet? Kyle Pitts, tight end wide receiver out of Florida. let's see, Marcel Louis-Jacques, Buffalo Bills NFL reporter, said Kyle Pitts goes to Atlanta where he'll have the chance to be the city's first ever sports icon.
Whoa, that's an interesting statement.
Okay, so let's think about Atlanta for a second. You got Michael Vick. And maybe a baseball player can't be. I mean, you got Chipper Jones. You got Michael Vick.
Hank Aaron?
Yeah.
I mean, he's iconic,
there's no
right?
doubt. And maybe this was tongue-in-cheek. I can't figure out where he was going because Twitter doesn't give us any context whatsoever, which I guess is why we like it. I don't know. But just in recent years, Vic, Chipper Jones, I can't go with Dominique Wilkins, although he was great. And then you mentioned Hank Aaron. You agree with that?
I guess that's it, right?
I think so.
If Matt Ryan doesn't blow the largest lead in Super Bowl history, do you put him up there? Or is it just his personality?
I'm not convinced that Matt Ryan blew it, but he was on the team that blew it.
And his personality's not sold. I guess he's never really sold him. Even though he's a great person and like does good things for the community, he's not like a marketed face of Atlanta.
No, he's not. Interesting tweet. All right, winners and losers from last night, Blake. In the top 10, who was the winner? Could you make a strong argument that it was the Atlanta Falcons because they still have a quarterback who can play at a high level? And could you make an argument that the Saints are going to have their hands full even more? And they're two of their rivals in their division. Two of their rivals in their division made really, really good picks in the top 10, and that Atlanta went and got a playmaker in Kyle Pitts that could be a handful all over the field, but especially in the red zone, catching touchdowns. And then the Saints, of course, play the Carolina Panthers 2 times a year, and J.C. Horn goes to the Panthers, where he could shut down maybe one of Sean Payton's, guys like Michael Thomas or another dude, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Saints, this draft was very unfortunate for you. Tampa Bay signed everyone in the offseason, so this draft was just about building for the future, but not probably for next season. So Tampa Bay is what they are what they are. But Carolina got better, and Atlanta got better, and they got better on the field next season. And so I don't think the Saints can say the same picking defensive end Peyton Turner with the 28th pick overall. I mean, I guess the one saving grace is you didn't spend a bunch of capital to go get a guy. But other than that, not a great night for the Saints.
All right, let's stay with winners and losers in the top 10. So you could say the winner is the Falcons. I mean, people think that if Kyle Pitts stays healthy, he won't have a good career. Not this 5 years, 1 Pro Bowl that I was throwing out. They think, man, if this guy stays healthy, he will play 8, 9, 10-plus years at a Hall of Fame level, and he could be transcendent and just have a remarkable career and be a big fantasy football guy and red zone guy, but more importantly, in the real, not the red zone channel, in the red zone, be maybe one of the most dominant players over a 7 to 10 year stretch. Okay, losers in the top 10. Could you argue it was the 49ers?
Well,
they took a chance at quarterback with Trey Lance, who started 17 games, played 1 game the last 2 years. He doesn't fit any of the criteria to be successful that Bartu has come up with over the last 20 years that you could argue has been one of the most accurate of all QB evaluation as far as quarterbacks jumping from college to the NFL. I mean, Bartu loved Eli Manning, just to bring it home. He loved Dak Prescott. He loved Justin Herbert. He loved Russell Wilson. He really, really liked Patrick Mahomes because all those guys checked the 3 boxes that he sets out as far as what it takes to be successful from college to the NFL. Mac Jones doesn't fit any of that. Justin Fields doesn't. Trey Lance doesn't. So was the loser in the top 10 the 49ers?
No.
Interesting.
It's the Broncos until they get Aaron Rodgers, because if they don't, they're the losers. They missed out on a generational quarterback potentially.
Well, okay, but Bartu says no way I would draft Justin Fields.
Okay, but Bartu also said he would have drafted Paxton Lynch. So I understand that the numbers are predominantly in one favor, but not always. I don't think you can say the 49ers taking Trey. I think if they took Mac Jones, it's a terrible pick. At least you can make the argument that Trey Lance is an undeveloped talent still, and that Kyle Shanahan can turn him into what he wants to. And
That's
he has all
true.
the wrong.
I think that's the one maybe saving grace is that the young man can be, there could be all this development to do with him, and as you said, mold him in to this fun quarterback that shows a lot of athleticism and mobility, and they allow him to they create high percentage throws for him after he redshirts. And this game is a lot of dinking and dunking for all quarterbacks, and that could work out for him. And he walks into a really good roster. You can't say that about Trevor Lawrence. Really can't say that about Zach Wilson to the Jets. Justin Fields walks into a pretty good roster with the Bears. So, yeah. That's
if you had to guess right now, does Justin Fields end up being the best quarterback to ever play in Chicago?
Ooh.
It's already an article from a PFF insider.
Well, yeah, it is. God, I love it. We're so crazy as fans. We're just, is he going to be the best ever? We do this with Ole Miss and Mississippi State, too, though.
Yeah. Who's the next Dak Prescott? Who's the next Eli Manning?
Who's the next Eli? He's the next Dexter McCluster. He's the next Dak Prescott. Holy smokes. All right, so Jim McMahon, who ran, an antiquated offense under Mike Ditka, or Jay Cutler, you're asking if Justin Fields will be better than Jay Cutler, even though Jim McMahon has the hardware, I think, is where you would go with that.
I guess, yeah.
I'll say no.
Oh, all right. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, man.
Okay.
I like where the quarterbacks landed.
You do?
Yeah, I think everybody's in a position to succeed with what their skill sets are, and so that'll be. I don't think anybody got drafted to a place that they can't succeed in.
Okay, that's fair enough. Mac Jones to the New England Patriots out of Alabama, and that could be a nice fit for if it's possible for him to be pretty good at QB in the NFL. That's probably his best opportunity, I think, is what Blake is saying. Fair enough. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Welcome Home Beef. Great selection of fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, and many, many other cuts of meat at Welcome Home Beef in Starkville on Main Street. Stop by this weekend as you're taking in some Hell State baseball. Load up your cooler and take it back home with you, and you'll have some great steaks when you're at the house. Welcome Home Beef in Starkville on Main Street. Back.